Have you ever, thrown out a simple question to an AI, or maybe even tried to tell it a joke and it just completely whiffed on the meaning? Maybe it took your sarcasm literally, or missed some subtle nuance that was like totally obvious to you, and you're left just sort of scratching your head thinking, how can something so incredibly smart struggle with something so, well, basic to human understanding?
It's a really common frustration, actually, and it perfectly highlights one of the most fascinating and persistent challenges in artificial intelligence.
Okay.
So today we're taking a deep dive into semantic ambiguity in AI.
Right.
This is the problem, this fascinating area where AI systems grapple with the fact that words, phrases, even whole conversations can hold multiple shifting meanings.
Okay, so our mission today is to really uncover why this isn't just some simple bug to fix, right? Why it's a fundamental hurdle for AI.
Exactly. And we'll be drawing some surprising insights from philosophy, actually.
And then we'll pivot, see how cutting-edge AI is actually trying to tackle it. We'll explore ideas from a paper on semantic ambiguity in AI, a Derridian perspective, and also other research from people like Daskal, Musknug, Edwards, quite a few.
That's right. You're about to get a real shortcut, to understanding one of AI's biggest conceptual mountains.
Uh-huh.
You'll discover some unexpected connections between, well, philosophy and computer science fields that seem miles apart sometimes.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll walk away with a much deeper appreciation for just how complex and flexible our own human language really is.
All right, let's do it. Let's pull back the curtain, maybe starting with that philosophical lens you mentioned, because the concept of meaning itself, it turns out, is incredibly slippery,
Yeah,
especially for AI.
it really is. And a lot of that foundational thinking comes from philosophers like Jacques Derrida. His theory, it directly challenges the simple idea that a word just has one fixed, unchanging meaning.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, for Derrida, the meaning of a signifier, you can just think of that as any symbol, like a word. It's never truly static. It's always in this state of what he called deferral and reinscription.
Deferral and reinscription. Bit of a mouthful. What does that actually mean?
Right. Imagine trying to define a word, let's say freedom. You'd use other words, right, to define it.
Sure.
But then those words need defining and so on and so on. Meaning is always sort of shifting. It always relies on context. And it's always being slightly redefined every time we use it.
Okay, I see. And that has huge implications for AI then, because traditional AI, especially the older stuff, built on symbolic representation.
Right. Those systems operate by trying to assign fixed meanings to symbols. They follow rigid, kind of context-free rules.
So if human meaning is constantly shifting, like you said, like sand, trying to build AI on a foundation of concrete, fixed definitions, well, it's bound to crack, isn't it?
Exactly. It just doesn't work well.
Yeah.
They simply can't process that dynamic complexity of human language, especially things like irony, sarcasm, or polysemy.
Polysemy, that's the one where a single word has multiple meanings.
Yep, that's the one. And this isn't a new problem. Way back in 1989, a scholar named Daskal argued that this very rigidity, this reliance on symbol manipulation approaches, is really at the core of many of these language-oriented philosophical problems for AI.
Let's make that more concrete. You had an example.
Yeah, think about a word you've definitely encountered ambiguity with. Bank. If I just say bank.
Right. Am I talking about a financial institution?
Yeah,
Or the land alongside a river?
exactly. And if an AI system lacks enough background knowledge, enough context, it'll just fail. Flat out. It can't disambiguate correctly.
And Daskal argued this wasn't just like a technical glitch, not something we can just patch up with more data.
No, he saw it as something more fundamental, a limitation stemming from, well, a basically misguided view of how natural language actually conveys meaning.
What was that flawed view?
It's the presumption that language meaning can be fully described in some exhaustive, fixed ontology of concepts, like a complete, unchangeable dictionary of everything.
Ah, okay. Like you could just box everything in with rigid, predefined labels and relations.
Right. But human language just doesn't work like that. It's messy, it's contextual.
So this flawed approach, Daskal gave it a name, didn't he?
He did. He called it the representational fallacy.
The representational fallacy. Okay.
And this fallacy is basically the mistaken belief that understanding can be fully equated with just representation.
So the flawed assumption is
What?
that you can fix all the meanings, all the rules for how symbols interact up front, before the AI even starts interacting, like at design time.
Precisely. And that leads directly to the kind of rigidity and brittleness we often see in AI systems. They just can't cope well when things get ambiguous or messy, what you might call non-ideal conditions. They can't adapt on the fly.
Okay, so if chasing that perfect exhaustive dictionary is the wrong way, what did Derrida suggest instead? He said something about meaning being emergent.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of trying to pre-program everything, the idea is that a system that truly understands should be actively trying to maintain and update its interpretation, its
Right.
categorization, as it interacts.
So it needs a dynamic way to handle meaning, principles to revise its understanding as it goes.
That's the core idea. It's about being flexible enough to learn and adjust as the conversation or the interaction unfolds, not relying on something entirely pre-baked.
Okay, that's a pretty deep philosophical challenge. So how is cutting-edge AI actually trying to grapple with this fluidity of meaning?
Well, a big part of the answer lies in what are called hybrid cognitive architectures.
Hybrid architectures.
Yeah, this is a really significant leap forward. They're specifically designed to bridge the gap between, that older rule-based symbolic AI and the newer pattern-recognizing neural networks.
Combining the two approaches?
Precisely.
Yeah.
These architectures integrate mechanisms from both sides. You get symbolic AI, which is great at following rules and using predefined knowledge, and you combine it with neural fields, which excel at pattern recognition, learning from data, adapting to new situations.
So it's like having the best of both worlds.
Kind of, yeah. When they work together synergistically, it's powerful. The symbolic part can use its structured knowledge to help disambiguate, check background facts, follow logical steps,
Right.
while the neural networks use their pattern matching ability to interpret context-dependent meanings, the stuff that's harder to pin down with rules.
So it's a real synergy in action. The symbolic side handles maybe the clearer stuff with well-defined procedures, and the neural networks learn from experience to categorize things based on the complex reality of the environment. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And this combination allows for this continuous feedback loop.
Yeah.
It embodies this crucial idea that resolving ambiguity isn't just a one-shot deal. It's about iteratively refining both the meaning and the context.
So the system can cope with new data, update itself dynamically.
Right. And a key part of this is something called multi-module access. If one part of the system hits an ambiguity,
Yeah.
it can then access data from other parts, other modules or layers, to try and construct a new, more accurate meaning. It's more flexible.
Is there a concrete example of this? An actual architecture?
Yeah, a great illustration is the Clarion architecture. It was developed by Sun and described by Vadinsky.
Clarion. Okay. How does that work?
Well, it uses two key subsystems. There's an explicit symbolic subsystem and an implicit neural network subsystem.
Explicit and implicit. So one handles the rules, the other the patterns.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Sun's core idea behind Clarion is that cognition itself is layered. Our explicit logical thinking and our implicit intuitive processes, they constantly interact and complement each other.
Makes sense.
And this layered approach is actually a really powerful response to some of those philosophical criticisms about purely symbolic AI being too rigid.
Because it integrates both explicit knowledge organization and that implicit pattern learning.
Exactly. It offers a more robust, more flexible way for AI to handle the dynamic nature of human language. It's trying to build an AI that can, in a sense, think a bit more like we do, combining logic with intuition.
This philosophical angle isn't just theoretical, is it? It seems to have massive implications for how we actually design and use AI, especially when you think about ethics.
Absolutely. Dascal pushed this further. He argued that AI systems, especially sophisticated ones like expert systems, shouldn't just focus on spitting out fixed answers and justifications.
So what should they do instead?
He urged that systems should actively address ambiguity, maybe by exploring different interpretations or even negotiating information with users or revising their own internal categories based on those interactions.
Wow, okay. That puts a lot of responsibility on AI designers then.
It really does. They need to adopt what you might call an interpretative perspective, one that's open to constant and radical revisions. They need to move away from that old belief that meaning can be completely nailed down at design time.
So they need to build in ideas from, what was it, hermeneutics and pragmatics?
Right. Hermeneutics, the theory of interpretation and pragmatics, the study of language in its actual context of use. Incorporate those insights.
And this matters hugely when we talk about the ethical stakes,
Right.
misunderstandings in sensitive areas.
Oh, immensely.
Yeah.
Think about AI in law or healthcare or mental health support. The need for AI to recognize that meaning is constantly being negotiated is just paramount.
Yeah.
These systems absolutely must be developed using methods from diverse areas, including insights from fields like science and technology studies, which look at how tech interacts with society.
Has there been research showing these failures in action?
Yes, actually.
Huh?
A recent report from Musnug highlighted this perfectly. They looked at failures in natural language processing, chatbots, language models.
Ah, the frustrating ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they found the failures usually weren't like grammatical errors. No, it was because the output carried inappropriate context, or its inferences just didn't match what the human actually intended.
And why was that happening?
Well, most of these NLP failures stemmed from a limited scope or data set, specifically a lack of background information on how language conveys feelings or humor, or how a speaker's background influences their word choice. For instance, the Mozilla Foundation did this huge study, their data harvesting bonanza, on AI chatbots. It revealed these systems often just fail to recognize shifting intentions of meaning as a conversation unfolds. They miss the cues.
And that inability to get the intended meaning, that has serious ethical implications, doesn't it? Especially around accountability. If an AI messes up because it misunderstood.
Exactly. Who's responsible?
Yeah.
Musnug suggests part of the solution is participatory design, getting humans involved deeply in the design and using socially situated standards and procedures.
Meaning, train the AI in the real world's social context it'll actually operate in, not just on isolated data.
Precisely. It needs that grounding.
If you connect all these threads, something like category learning theory from how humans think, that seems to strongly back this up, right? This need for AI to interpret meaning dynamically.
It really does. It points to something vital. We humans, we don't just categorize based on features alone. We rely heavily on our background knowledge, our past experiences, even the immediate situation to figure out the meaning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Edwards and colleagues in some 2022 research showed exactly that. Our prior circumstances heavily influence how we select, say, the particular dimension of a category that's relevant right now, how we recall meaning, how we predict unknown features.
So context is key. I remember reading research by Stangor and Ruvel. They showed it's way easier to recall and understand meanings from sentences if they relate to your existing background knowledge.
Right. Without that context, understanding is just significantly harder. It links directly to things like analogical reasoning research, too, how we generalize interpretations based on previous experience.
So the crucial missing piece for AI, it isn't just having a giant dictionary, a database of semantic memory elements. That's not enough for polysemy, for multiple meanings.
Not nearly enough. Edwards and his colleagues stressed this critical need to integrate both functional organization, things like context, and the current task and elements influencing semantic representation, like prior knowledge. Put them together in the same system.
And that aligns perfectly with those philosophical arguments we started with, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows how these deep critiques aren't just abstract ideas. They offer vital inspiration for building better AI. AI that can actually tackle ambiguity and semantics more effectively.
So there you have it. We've really journeyed from some pretty deep philosophical critiques, Derrida, Dascal, all the way to cutting-edge AI like hybrid architectures. And we've seen how understanding the nuanced, dynamic, just ever-shifting nature of meaning isn't just some technical challenge. It's absolutely essential if we want to build AI that truly understands us.
Yeah, it's not just about patching bugs. It's fundamental.
It's about fundamentally rethinking how AI processes language, pushing towards systems that are more flexible, more context-aware, and, importantly, more ethically aligned.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a fascinating thought, doesn't it? As these AI systems continue to evolve, as they get better at understanding the nuances of our complex, ambiguous language, what does that mean for our own understanding of communication?
Interesting question.
Could these advanced models, the ones designed specifically to grapple with semantic ambiguity, could they ultimately help us better comprehend the complexities, the shifting intentions in our own human conversations?
That's definitely something to mull over.
Yeah. Something to think about until our next deep dive.